In this poll, I asked you to vote for the most difficult type of questions in IELTS listening. Just like me, you said multiple choice. There is just so much to read and there are so many confusing details. In this lesson, I'd like to share my tips on how to find correct answers, and we'll immediately check how each tip works in practice. It's Asia. Let's get started. There are two types of these questions. Choose the correct letter, A, B, or C. In this case, you need to find one correct answer out of 3. Or choose 2 letters from A to E. Then you need to find 2 correct answers. For each of them, you get 1 point. All the questions we're using today are from Cambridge practice tests, so they're just like the real exam papers, and I highly recommend using these books in your practice. I find that the difficulty of these questions is partly determined by how long your options are. Sometimes you see just 1 or 2 words per option. Sometimes each is sentence long. Let's start with short options to warm up, and I'd like you to apply these 2 tips. If options are short, correct answers are usually paraphrased. Beware of traps. These are options where the keyword is repeated but the answer is wrong. Please count how many questions you answer correctly. Okay, you're about to hear a monologue about an estate or a large house with a garden and some land used for farming. Here are the first 2 questions. Please read them, you have a few seconds, and then you will hear the recording.
The estate consists of the house, gardens, parkland and farm, and it dates back to the 14th century. The original house was replaced in the late 17th century, and of course it has had a large number of owners. Almost all of them have left their mark, generally by adding new rooms, like the ballroom and conservatory, or by demolishing others. The farm looks much as it's always done, although the current owner has done a great deal of work to the flower beds. Big houses like Oniton had dozens of servants until the 1920s or 30s, and we've tried to show what their working lives were like. Photographs, of course, don't give much of an idea, so instead, as you go round the house, you'll see volunteers dressed up as 19th century servants going about their work. They'll explain what they're doing and tell you their recipes or what tools they're using. We've just introduced this feature to replace the audio guide we used to have available.
Let's have a look at the first question and the transcript. First of all, the question says, many past owners made changes to not just one, but many. Now, in the first sentence, we just have the description of the estate and that it had a large number of owners. Okay, so what changes have they made? Almost all of them had left their mark generally by adding a new room, like the ballroom and conservatory, or by demolishing others. So adding a new room is making changes to the house. That's the correct answer. But actually, there is another sentence. Let's check. The farm, so we have a word from one of our options, looks more like it's always done. So no changes have been made to the farm. Although the current owner has done a great deal of work to the flower beds. So flower beds, that's our garden. But it's only the current owner who made changes, and we need many past owners. So again, this option is incorrect. But actually, as soon as you hear the correct answer in IELTS listening, like B, you can move on to the next question because the answer will not change. Now, question number 2. Visitors can learn about the work of servants from... Now let's have a look at our transcript. Okay, so here we just learned that there were a lot of servants in this house. Next, photographs. So that's option B. Of course, don't give much of an idea. So this is an incorrect option. So instead, you go around the house and you see volunteers dressed up as servants. This means they are in costumes. They are dressed up, going about their work, and they will explain what they're doing and tell you their recipes and what tools they're using. So you can learn about the work of servants from people in costume. That's the correct answer. But again, we have another sentence. We've just introduced this feature to replace the audio guide. Again, we have one of our keywords from option A we used to have available. Used to means it was true in the past, but it's not true anymore. They don't have audio guides anymore. So the correct answer is C. As you might have noticed, both in this and the previous question, we found the correct answer in the middle of the description. And the correct answer was actually paraphrased. But then we had another option where the keyword was repeated, but this option was incorrect. So I call them traps. Now try to apply the same tips to a question with 2 answers. This one is from section 3, which means it's a dialogue. In our case, these are 2 students working on a theater project. Now you have some time to read this question.
So, first of all, I'm not sure how much information we should include in our reviews.
Right. Well, I don't think we need to describe what happens, especially as Romeo and Juliet is one of Shakespeare's most well-known plays.
Yeah, everyone knows the story. In an essay, we'd focus on the poetry and Shakespeare's use of imagery, etc. But that isn't really relevant in a review. We're supposed to focus on how effective this particular production is.
We should say what made it a success or a failure.
And part of that means talking about the emotional impact the performance had on us. I think that's important.
Yes. And we should definitely mention how well the director handled important bits of the play, like when Romeo climbs onto Juliet's balcony.
And the fight between Mercutio and Tybalt.
Yes. It would also be interesting to mention the theatre space and how the director used it, but I don't think we'll have space in 800 words.
No, okay.
Let's have a look. We need to find 2 correct answers. Student 1. So how much information should we include? Student 2. Well, I don't think we need to describe what happens. Describing what happens is option B, a summary of the plot. They don't need it. Next, student 1. Yeah, everyone knows a story. In an essay, we would focus on the poetry and Shakespeare's use of imagery. So poetry and imagery. It may be a little bit non-straightforward, but they're actually talking about option A, analysis of the text. But he says that in an essay, they would focus on it. But it isn't really relevant in a review, and they are writing a review. So again, option A is incorrect. Student 2. We should say what made it a success or failure. And part of that means talking about the emotional impact the performance had on us. This is option D. Yes, they think it's important. Student 2, and we should definitely mention how well the director handled important bits of the play, like when Romeo climbed on the balcony. So this is a reference to particular scenes. They think they should mention that. That's the second correct answer. And again, we have some more. And the fight, yes, that refers to the previous answer. It would also be interesting to mention the theater space and how the director used it. So the theater, that's option C, and actually the keyword is repeated here. But I don't think we have space. So no, they're not gonna mention that. Okay, as you can see in this answer, each option was mentioned, not in order. Most of them were paraphrased. The only repeated keyword was the theater discussed at the very end, and that was actually a trap. That answer would be wrong. Okay, it's time to try some questions where each option is a bit longer. Here are some tips. Find the keywords in each option. They can help you find which option is being discussed. If you are taking a paper-based exam, you can underline them. In the computer-based test, you can highlight text, but honestly, there is no time. Next, some keywords are paraphrased, some are not. You will hear a number of options discussed, but answers depend on certain details. Try to read all the questions and options as carefully as possible. We'll talk about how to find time for that a bit later. And do look out for traps. If you hear a keyword, it doesn't mean this option is correct. The answer may be correct or may be wrong. If a certain option is incorrect, cross it out. Then you'll be selecting your answer among fewer options. Again, this tip is more applicable to the paper-based test where you can quickly cross things out. Right now, you're gonna hear a part 2 monologue about a school and its extended hours childcare service. Ready? Now you have some time to read this question.
We offer childcare for children from the ages of 4 to 11, both before and after school. We are insured to provide care for up to 70 children, although we rarely have this many attending at any one session. I think we generally expect around 50 to 60 children for the afternoon sessions, and about half that number for the breakfast sessions. Although we currently do have 70 children registered with us, not all of these attend every day. It's 10 years since we began offering an extended hours service, and we've come a long way during that time. When we first opened, we only had about 20 children attending regularly.
Before we read the transcript, let's have a look at the question itself. When our options are long, it's particularly important to find the keywords and to find what the differences are between different options. Then it will be easier for you to navigate. So here, I would say that they are talking about sessions after school and before school, or mornings and afternoons. So that may be important. And of course, numbers. 50 children, more children, 70. Let's read the transcript. In the first sentence, we learn that they offer childcare for children from the ages of 4 to 11. We don't have any options with ages, both before and after school. Okay, now we know that. Have a look at this one. We're insured to provide care for up to 70 children. Well, actually, we have 70 children here, right? 70. And it says the maximum number. And indeed, if they're only insured for 70, it would be illegal to take more children. So this option is correct. Next, I think we generally expect around 50 to 60 children for the afternoon sessions. Afternoon. Okay, we have 50 children here. What does it say? The average of 50 children attend in the mornings. So no, we don't have information like that. Let's continue reading. And about half that number for breakfast sessions or in the morning. Have a look at option B. More children attend after school than before school. Yes, that's correct. We've actually found our answers, but let's continue reading. Although we currently have 70 children registered with us, not all of these attend every day. And I think they're actually talking about something similar to this one. But they're saying that not all children choose to come, while in this option they say children cannot come. So they choose not to come or they cannot come. These are different things, so this option is incorrect. And the last, it's 10 years since we began. And if you have a look at option A, it started recently? No. So how did that go? Hope you're up for the challenge. The most complex questions are coming. In some tests, not in all, in part 3, you may find a number of questions with very long options, like in this example, 6 questions. When preparing for this video, I tried to read all of them in the time allocated in the test, but I could barely finish skimming through, and it did reflect on my performance. Here is what you can do. These questions come in part 3. At the end of part 2, you'll be given 30 seconds to review your answers. Don't review them. Start reading these multiple choice questions as soon as part 2 finishes. Then you have a better chance to read all the questions, and it will be a bit easier to navigate through these options once the recording starts. The other tips are the same as before. I've selected 3 questions for you. In this dialogue, 2 students are discussing their work experience which they undertook at 2 different farms. Right now, I'm going to give you as much time to read these questions as you're going to get in the test if you don't use the review time. If that's not enough, as soon as you hear the recording, pause the video, finish reading all the options, and then resume it.
So, Tim, we have to do a short summary of our work experience on a farm.
Right. My farm was great, but arranging the work experience was hard. One problem was it was miles away and I don't drive. And also, I'd really wanted a placement for a month, but I could only get one for 2 weeks.
I was lucky. The farmer let me stay on the farm, so I didn't have to travel. But finding the right sort of farm to apply to wasn't easy.
No, they don't seem to have websites, do they? I found mine through a friend of my mother's, but it wasn't easy.
No.
I was interested in the amount of supplements they add to animals' feed nowadays. Like, even the chickens got extra vitamins and electrolytes in their feed.
Yes, I found that too. And they're not cheap. But my farmer said some are overpriced for what they are, and he didn't give them as a matter of routine, just at times when the chickens seemed to particularly require them.
Yes, mine said the same. He said certain breeds of chickens might need more supplements than the others, but the cheap and expensive ones are all basically the same. So, did your farm have any other livestock, Diana?
Yes, dairy cows. Ugh, I made a really embarrassing mistake when I was working in the milk shed. Some cows had been treated with antibiotics, so their milk wasn't suitable for human consumption and it had to be put in a separate container. But I got mixed up and I poured some milk from the wrong cow in with the milk for humans.
First of all, it's very important to read the question itself carefully. We're looking for problems that both Diana and Tim faced, both of them. And our options are about the initial contact, transport, and finding a placement for the required length of time. Now, over here, Tim started talking about his problems. So one problem was that it was miles away and I don't drive. So he had a problem with transport. And also, he wanted it for a month, but could only get 2 weeks. So he had a problem with the length of time. But did Diana have the same problems? She says, I was lucky. The farmer let me stay on the farm, so no, she didn't have a problem with the transport. But finding the right sorts of farm wasn't easy. So she had a problem with this one. And she actually didn't mention option C. Tim replied, No, they don't seem to have websites, do they? I found mine through a friend of my mother's. Yes, he also had this problem of making the initial contact. The second question was about adding supplements to chicken. What did the students learn? So the question doesn't specifically say both of them or what tip was the same for both of them. So it actually doesn't require a specific confirmation from both students. But let's have a look at the transcript. Diana says, supplements are not cheap. So she's discussing option B. Is it worth paying extra? My farmer said they are overpriced. No, they shouldn't pay extra. And he didn't give them as a matter of routine. He didn't give them regularly, just at times when the chickens seem to particularly require them. This is option A. Supplements should be given if specially needed. Yes, that's the correct answer. But let's continue. Just to be sure you get the correct answer, Tim says, yes, mine said the same. And then he added that some breeds of chickens might need more supplements than others. But this is not the same as option C, where they say that the amount given at one time should be limited. No, it's not the same. And he continues, but the cheap and expensive ones are the same. So again, option B is incorrect. And the last question. What mistake did Diana make? Well, actually, here we need to read a couple of sentences again. She says, some cows have been treated with antibiotics, so their milk wasn't suitable for human consumption and had to be stored or put in a separate container. But I got mixed up and poured some milk from the wrong cow in with the milk for humans. So the whole lot had to be thrown away. So this keyword, thrown away, is repeated from option B, threw away some milk, but is it what happened? She accidentally threw some milk away. No, she didn't throw it away. She made a mistake when storing the milk. She put it in the wrong container and then they had to throw milk away. So that wasn't a mistake. The mistake was C. Those were tough. In IELTS listening, you need to switch your attention between listening, reading, and writing very quickly. And the less effort it requires you to understand the recording itself, the better. If you have some time before your exam, start listening to audiobooks in English. Pronunciation is clear, like in the IELTS exam, and you can listen to them while commuting or cooking. if you're not on Audible where I listen to all my books, you can get any book for free when you join a free trial. And after 1 month, you'll start paying a monthly fee which gives you access to 1 new book every month. But if you unsubscribe during the trial, you still keep your free book. And if you decide to try Audible, could you please use the link in the description box? It will allow me to earn a small commission at no expense to you. So, how many questions in this video could you answer correctly? Please tell me in the comments. The second toughest type of question in our poll was maps. That's the one. Please check it out, and thank you so much for watching me today. Good luck with your preparation and your exam. Bye!